Red light, green light, red light, green light, red light, green light, red light, green light, red light.
Folks, on March 8th of 2022, we started the Soul Sessions, and as today we are reaching our 200th episode, so I figured why not get the last king of Scotland, a man who's hungry like a wolf. He's a former NXT UK and NXT ICW World Champion and Zero D Champion, Wolfgang. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you very much. How do you do?
Oh, I'm very well, man. And I figure we're going to start this episode right. A man like yourself, 200 episodes. We might as well start properly and start with a good old pint of attendance to really kick this off very well.
I don't have any of that. That's hard to get over here.
It is a bit.
I'm over
I know.
in Florida at the moment, and
it's all Bud Light and Budweiser there. I have to touch the elixir, I'm afraid.
You know what? Here's the first scoop of the interview. I'm not that big a drinker. I don't get into alcohol that much, and when I do, surprisingly, it's not beer. I enjoy a cider, but if we're going on a night out, I enjoy a rum, something sweet. But my dad is very much into tenants, and him and I have travelled the world together, like on trips, mostly round about wrestling. And he's always looked for a tenants. He always expects to go into a bar in the middle of Texas and be able to get a pint of tenants on draft. And everywhere we go, he's disappointed. But when I moved over here to Florida, January 2023, we lived in Orlando for a while, but then I moved up north to a place and we went into a local British bar and they just so happened to have tenants on draft. So immediately I had to get my dad a wee trip, jumped a flight, came over here. I took him into the place. He tried a pint of tenants and I says to him, right, you've finally got a pint of tenants. How does that feel? Like in America, you've been looking for it for like 10 years. And he went, and it might not be tenants, but it might be something else they've got plugged up. Like the front and the handle is tenants, but he still thinks they've got Budweiser hooked up to the thing. He just can't believe that he's getting tenants at Glasgow Pint and miles away. So I ended up saying to the barkeeper, can you show me what that's hooked up to? And sure enough, it's a keg of tenants. I don't know how they get it, where they get it from. They must import them themselves because it's very rare. But my dad still doesn't believe he's getting the real deal. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there.
Hey, you know, Americans are very crafty. They'll find a way to get something if we need it, and tenants is the best way to enjoy, I would say, a Scottish summer, but a Scottish summer is usually filled with rain and all of that other jazz because, you know, our country's known for that.
Nothing wrong with a bit of rain, just the wrong clothes. We've missed having the seasons over here in Florida. It sounds like a good complaint to have, that it's too hot and it's too sunny. Like when you walk, if you've spent much time in a kind of hot climate like Florida, air conditioning is essential. And when you're walking around outside, you're so thankful for getting it. So I've been over in Florida for 2 years living, and I miss a Glasgow summer or a Scottish summer. Like I miss the elements and just getting to feel the weather. So if I get back home, I'm looking forward to that. Just being able to enjoy a nice hot day without it being overwhelming, and then know that the rain's coming soon, so nothing's going to be too dry for too long.
Well, I mean, we'll roll out the red carpet and we'll get all the celebrations for you coming back here to Scotland. I'll make sure that it's a proper, well-done introduction. But you know what, Wolfgang, we've done it with every guest on the show. We've done it for 200 episodes now. We'll continue it on. Every guest has a story and every story has a beginning. Wolfgang, how did your story begin as a wrestling fan?
As a wrestling fan, it's probably a typical story for a lot of wrestling fans. I started watching it at a young age. I was in Hag Hill in the East End of Glasgow, in a flat where I lived with my parents. I was maybe 2-3 years old. I hadn't started school, I'd maybe started nursery. But I remember sitting on the floor and the television being on and seeing American pro wrestling. And it was stars like Macho Man Randy Savage, The Ultimate Warrior, Jake the Snake. This was like late 80s, early 90s. And the guy that I was absolutely drawn towards was Hulk Hogan. He was just this larger than life character. He was in everything at the time. He had his own cartoon on the television. He was on every TV show, every advert. He was just like what we thought a superhero was like at the time, like a real life superhero. Jake the Snake was a massive influence for me too. And later in life, at the start of my wrestling career, I got to meet him and guys like him and give him thanks for, I don't know, switching something on inside me that just opened me up to loving professional wrestling. Fast forward a few years, I think for the most part, I had one VHS tape, and it was Royal Rumble 1991. And there was another compilation video, again VHS, of mega matches with Macho Man on the front of it. And I watched these two videos to death. We didn't have like cable television, we didn't have Sky satellite at this point. It was just 4 channels, literally 4 channels, because Channel 5 came later. So any pro wrestling we got was going to be from videotapes. And I watched these two tapes till death. It was Royal Rumble 1991, where Hulk Hogan wins. And then Mega Matches was just full of like, I think it was maybe mostly Macho Man stuff. But this was at the time of like Coliseum Video was putting out loads of great stuff. If you've never watched these old VHSs, do yourself a favour and find an old VHS player and go back and watch some of them. You'll buy the VHSs for buttons because no one wants them at any point. But I've noticed recently, certainly between our household and me and my wife, we've been getting a lot more physical entertainment because when the internet cuts out and there's a hurricane here in Florida, it's an absolute nightmare trying to watch anything. So if you've got VHSs and you get DVDs, as long as you get electricity, you're still going to be able to watch some content, and that content's normally pro wrestling for me. So 1991, so let's say around about early 90s, I was a massive wrestling fan as a toddler, and then when it came time for everyone to start growing out of professional wrestling, normally when they get to secondary school or high school, everyone starts to look at pro wrestling a little bit differently. And there'll be some people that will take the piss out of you and almost bully you just for enjoying something. And then they'll start liking football, maybe rugby, something else. I just never fell away from professional wrestling when everyone started going off into getting different interests. I was still watching at this point, or maybe 1997 or 8, because we'd moved house to a place called Carntine, still in the East End of Glasgow, and we got Sky Television in. So for the first time, I was able to watch recent stuff and see what was going on. And I turned on the television one night. It must have been like December 97, maybe 96. Ken Shamrock was on Raw's War, and he was annihilating the Nation of Domination with belly to belly suplexes and ankle locks, and it was the most intense thing I'd ever seen. And if you jump from 1991 to like just the boiling point of the Attitude Era, it was just so different and so exciting that I got even more into it, and to the point where I thought that's what I wanted to do in my life. And it never seemed likely or possible that anyone from Scotland was ever going to get signed for the WWE, just because Like we had Roddy Piper was a Canadian. I think the Highlanders. I want to think at least one of them was born in Scotland, but publicity-wise, everyone always says the first guy that was ever signed to the WWE from Scotland was Drew McIntyre, and then 2006, no one had done that. So I've lost track of what I was talking about. Where was I?
That's what
When I
you're
was
talking
starting
about,
putting Drew over.
putting Drew over. I mean,
So,
hey, fair enough.
so for how different it was, like Ken Shamrock on Raw as well, absolutely battering everyone. And at that point, Shawn Michaels was kind of on his way out. He was leading towards WrestleMania 14, and Stone Cold was on the up. He was coming out, hitting Stone Cold Stunners on everyone. It was Royal Rumble 1998 was the first pay-per-view that I sat down and watched on Sky Sports. So I was hooked up and all that kind of frenzy of Stone Cold Steve Austin. And my favourite guy from that point on was Shawn Michaels. And he was the guy that I would credit saying that made me want to be a professional wrestler and made me want to try and do that and perform like that, especially if the idea of it being a job and making money was never it was never in my conscious. It was always just be I want to be a performer like Shawn Michaels. I want to do what he does and make people feel the way he makes his audience feel when he's performing. It's just that's the two guys that I would credit for getting me into it. Like I've had loads of obviously influencers over the years that either I like to watch or I like to kind of emulate when I'm training. But yeah, those are my two guys. Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan were responsible for hooking me in professional wrestling, and I'm 38 years old now, and I love it more than I ever have. It's never went away. I don't see it going away now.
Never, Wolfgang. You've got that passion, you've got that love, and it's still there. And it's from two legendary wrestlers like that. Great inspiration to have. Obviously, as well, wrestling is such a unique form of media that I've always said it transcends language. You could watch a New Japan show, a AAA show, and it transcends the language barrier. Wolfgang, if you were to explain, why do you think wrestling is such a perfect medium that it does transcend that barrier of language?
It's physical entertainment, and the best ones that do it, whether it's whatever story they're trying to tell. If you watch early Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, when it was silent movies, it was all physical comedy or physical entertainment with facial expressions. And if you think of the best pro wrestlers, they're some of the best like emoters you'll ever see. Like a lot of them, if you think back right now to what your favorite moments in professional wrestling are, there'll be someone's face attached to that, and they'll be fooling some sort of facial expression. Like it's just you can connect to people on an emotional level without having to speak their language. Everyone can understand the idea of the basis is professional wrestlers. It's combat. It's two competitors going at it one on one, which is ingrained in our system to watch as entertainment as far back as anyone knows. Like it's just the idea of two people getting in a ring and fighting to see who's the best. Anyone can sit down and watch that in any language in any time period throughout all of history and understand what's going on. The best ones are the ones that can connect to an audience with their actions and with their emotions. And yeah, it's the best form of entertainment I've ever witnessed. As far as it's television, it's movies, it's stunts, it's drama, and it's all done live in one take. And there's no actor sitting shouting cut or asking for like a stunt double to come in. We're the stunt doubles or we're the stunt actors. Um, a lot of pro wrestlers say this because it just sounds like we're putting ourselves over. But you ask who's the top 5 actors in the world, the most famous guys in the world. Like it's hard for anyone to go out and do what we do for as soon as you step through the curtain to the moment you leave again. That performance has started, the movie started, the television show is on, and you need to hit your cue in every moment, as well as face the cameras, feel the audience and entertain them. Like there's no sort of live entertainment like it. And it's easy to get passionate about it, and it's also easy for people to kind of discount it or discredit it because the F word floats about and everyone just thinks it's fake. So that means that there's no worth in it, which is crazy because everything you watch is fake. And you'll hear this all the time, but anything on television at this point or on your phone, it's all fake and it's getting faker. And people are believing that. Like whether it's the easy ones like movies and TV shows, no one discredits them because they're not true stories. Like documentaries are popular, but they're not selling out cinemas. There's not like Netflix does a lot with that kind of stuff, I guess. But my point is like it's a performance, and everyone loves it more so for that. If you watch UFC or boxing, and these guys can build these fights up for months at a time, and then they get in the ring, and it just doesn't live up to the hype. Professional wrestling is always going to live up to the hype because we can always create any story we want, and with the best performance, with the best performances or performers in the world, you can have people hooked to the end of their seat for an hour, easy, from the start of a show to from the start of your match. The best ones can hook them that long. I dare anyone to go to even a local pro wrestling show. It doesn't have to be WWE. Like support your local independent promotions because the entertainment value is going to be just as good. And these are the guys that you're going to see become the stars that you're watching on TV and then having to go to the Hydro and pay hundreds and hundreds of pounds to see them. So if you go to any one of these shows, I dare you to walk away without being entertained and getting your ticket money's worth from at least one element of the show. Let's say there's 6 matches. It's a variety act. There's something for everyone. You've got comedic wrestlers. You've got the serious, aggressive wrestlers. If you've got 5 matches, 6 matches, that's at least 10 or 12 different pros in there that are all trying to entertain you and make you sure you go home knowing you had a good night. So professional wrestling, whether it's independent shows like stuff you're watching on YouTube or the big names, like I dare anyone to say there's any sort of better form of entertainment than pro wrestling. I know that's biased and we're all wrestling fans, but all you need to do is get them in the door. Anyone that's not a wrestling fan, bring them to a show, and I'll bet money on it that they're going to leave going down the pub the next day saying that was great. I went to the wrestling last night thinking it was going to be shite, but it was absolutely brilliant. I was enjoying it more than the Waynes were. The amount of times that when I was running a pub, I would hear that after adults, and I'm like, I know it's very, very good, and everybody should come watch it. So that's the hard thing is just try to get non-wrestling fans into it because they'll ultimately become a wrestling fan. You hear it constantly when you speak to people in, let's say, their 20s, 30s, and 40s, where they're like secret wrestling fans, where they used to watch it when they were young, and then maybe they went to high school and secondary school and it wasn't cool to like it anymore. So they either didn't watch it anymore or they stopped telling people they watch it. But the amount of people that will come up to you and go, I used to love that when I was younger. Like, why did you stop? Like, it's still just as good. And there's so much of it now. Like, there's so much pro wrestling now. It seems it's at the height of its popularity. Like, it's more famous than it ever was. I grew up through the Attitude Era, and that felt like a real buzz. Like, it was cool to like wrestling. and it feels as though we've kind of came full circle where I'd imagine people in the pub are talking about it, and it's I'm glad it's came full circle and it's so popular because there's more wrestling available now than there ever was, which is obviously good for me, who's looking for a job.
Hey, I mean, it's great to see, and honestly, it's amazing to just see how much of it is out there that with obviously the World Wide Web, we can view as much as it as we want. And I've always been fascinated, obviously, in Scotland, we have a celebration of the festivals with the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which is a great festival celebrating the arts. And I've always thought, why has there never been a wrestling show at the Fringe? And obviously, I know there's Mythos Ragnarok, which do a wrestling type theatre performance, but never like an actual show. Wolfgang, do you think that there's a possibility wrestling could run at the Fringe?
We did it. ICW did it for at least 1 or 2 years. It wasn't like every night the way Mythos Ragnarok is, where they're blending like the drama of all the Norse mythology, like the Odin, Thor, Loki, all these characters, but it's blended in to professional wrestling fight scenes. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's another great example of professional wrestling crossing over and entertaining the masses. But ICW, Mark Dallas, he ran the Fringe at least 1 year, probably two in a row, where we would have maybe it was like every weekend we had a show, we had a run of them. And they were good, they were popular, they did draw. We were every Sunday it was. I'm just getting word in my ear here. The studio telling me it was every Sunday. Studio 24. Yep. I just heard it in my ear there again. Studio 24 in Edinburgh. So that was great fun. I want to say it was like 2014. So, wow, over 10 years ago. But so no wonder you weren't aware of it. It's never really been done since. There was another team that tried it too, and it was in a theatre where they had the ring on stage. I'm sure I found a bit of a wrestling documentary on it. But yeah, the thought had crossed my mind because the entire time that I've been in the WWE, I've been coaching longer than that. And in 2019, I bought a wrestling. Well, in 2019, I bought a gym. We'd set up the Glasgow Pro Wrestling Asylum for ICW, and now that's being ran by some world class coaches. I stepped away from that when I moved over here, but in 2020, when everything shut down, we had just bought a gym and it was open to the public regularly, but we were able to kind of rebrand everything and we changed it to a private pro wrestling gym, Iron Girders in Parkhead in Glasgow. So the entire time that I've been over here, I've been operating that remotely. We offer coaching from beginner level to intermediate and advanced, and it's a fully equipped strength and conditioning facility. So it's as close to what you can get as to the WWE Performance Centre in a wee shed in the East End of Glasgow. And we run shows for the people that we're coaching so they get experience performing in front of an audience. And this year, I was going to look into the possibility of being able to run the Fringe because we want to be running as many shows as possible. Well, I'm just speaking to someone today who's going to be bringing our football team in, a local football team, like a youth team are going to come in and we're going to put a show on for them and raise some money for them to buy football kits, balls, equipment, whatever they need, nets. So things like that. I'm always looking for opportunities for Iron Girders members to perform in front of an audience. And I thought the Fringe is the perfect place for professional wrestling. Like it fits so well. You can write any sort of stories, any sort of characters you like. I know the Fringe is not strictly, but it's supposed to be a bit of a comedy festival. So there's nothing to say where you can have an hour show every day and it's filled with wrestlers, but also crossed with comedy. I do think it would fit. I don't know the logistics of it, but I'm already looking into it, and we're probably not going to be this year. It just seems a bit. All the venues will be eaten up quite early. But if it's something I could potentially do next year, then yeah, I would love to have Iron Girders performing a show at least once a week at the Edinburgh Fringe.
Oh, come on, Wolfgang. Just grab a ring. Go in, St. James Centre Park. Just do it in the park, man. I mean, I'm sure we wouldn't mind. I mean,
What's
really, though, the
yeah?
Fringe is good. Hey, come
What's the
on.
worst they can do? Like, we build the ring, and then if anyone comes and asks for any sort of permission slips or like Section 89s from the council to build this, we're just gonna okay, we'll take it back down. You caught us, or we risk it for a biscuit every week. I've got a friend, give him a little advert here, but it's rubber duck bathrooms in Denniston and all around the east end of Glasgow. You might have seen him in the news recently where one of these massive inflatable ducks exploded and millions of little polystyrene beads filled the Alexander Parade to the point where everyone was getting concerned for the wildlife safety, and he was out with a hoover and a generator hoovering up all these little beads to do everything he could to try and make sure it was safe for everyone and all the wildlife again. But he forgot why I was talking about him. What was I saying before that? Yeah, so he has got a trailer outside Alexander Park where he parks it up every night, and because it's on wheels, if anyone comes and asks, he just hitches it and drives away. Now, there was a way of doing that with the ring and just having a wrestling ring on wheels that we could build, and then if anyone comes, we'll just wheel it away. That's I don't know the logistics of this. Somebody's going to have to work it out a little bit smarter than me, but I'll support them the whole way.
I mean, very fantastic, Mr. Fox, or more in your case, fantastic, Mr. Wolf. So, I mean, I think there's a way you could get that done. I mean, I think it'd be very impressionable. But you've also talked about
Anything's
girders there.
possible.
Anything's possible, mate. You've talked about Iron Girders there, and I've had many on from Girders: Martin McAllister, Ellie Armstrong, Tommy Lockhart. All of these individuals that have said that Girders have helped them in their life and wrestling career. When you hear that, Wolfgang, of what the facility you've built and the trainers you bring in and just what you bring to people's wrestling careers, that's got to be the most rewarding feeling, correct?
Yeah, absolutely correct. Martin McAllister in particular, and Ellie Armstrong and Tommy Lockhart, I've had a hand in coaching all of them, whether it's been at the asylum or they've been in Girders when I've been there, or I like to watch some matches back with them, like tape study, and that's one thing that I can do from here. Like I'm not able to be in the gym with them, but I can certainly sit here with them like I'm doing with you and go over matches with them and give them a bit of critique. And incidentally, I don't know if Martin told you this story, but in let's say 2020, everything was on lockdown and ICW were running shows without an audience, similar to how we were doing down at the BT Sports and NXT UK, which personally I enjoyed at the time. I felt as though it made me a different kind of competitor, not having to worry about interacting and directly entertaining the people sitting there, but just locking in on my opponent, and it felt more like a fight to me. It helped me kind of attach that side of it. So I enjoyed all the lockdown tapings. So ICW had started running empty arena shows and putting content out online. They were one of the first ones to get on top of all the COVID protocols and make sure it was safe for everyone. And it was actually I just heard in my ear there, it was actually on the WWE Network, these episodes. So Martin McAllister is a guy that had been training with us for a while and was like choking for an opportunity. So when ICW were looking for talent to come in as an enhancement talent, really. So he didn't get an entrance. He was brought in, he just appeared in the ring. And he done this over and over to the point where I think we did get some fans into the asylum, and eventually they were cheering to give this guy an entrance. Like they were kind of trying to get behind Martin McAllister just to get him an entrance. Never mind winning a match. You just wanted to see him get a little bit of progress and success. So Martin came in, done his job well, and when he was speaking to the boss, Mark Dallas, had says to him the same thing that everyone gets told in any walk of life, in any job. When you're looking for a new job, they say to you, you just need more experience. So how do you do that when the world's shut down and there's barely any professional wrestling shows? So my idea was we've got the gym, we've turned it into a pro wrestling facility now. The ring's there. We can knock down a wall and open this up, and it works as a bit of a studio, almost like a perfect little pro wrestling venue. And the driving force behind that idea was to get Martin McAllister and people like him the opportunity to perform on shows that wasn't your first match is on ICW being filmed for the WWE network. It's just, that's crazy. Your first match should never be presented on the WWE. Like, when I think back to when I started in 2002, I had a battle royal in November of 2002, and then I had a tag match in February of 2003. So those were like my first experiences in a match in front of a crowd. And I'm so glad that they weren't on television for everyone to see, because you're just completely exposed immediately. You're like, there you go. You're either ready or you're not. And every mistake you're going to be made, every mistake you're going to make is going to be made on the WWE network. So it sounds cool that your first match is there, but also to get good at this, you have to do it hundreds and hundreds of times in front of an audience before anyone can really be considered good or even competent. Like it's hard to do this. So the difference between, I guess, my generation and the generation coming on now is like everything is immediately available online. Like we run shows in Girders for our students, and we have them recorded, edited, and we get commentary put over the top of them, and we put them out on YouTube, just so that Martin McAllister, Ellie Armstrong, Tommy Lockhart have all got a good production value curriculum vitae, like a CV almost, that they can show to other promoters, because that's ultimately what Girders is all about, is trying to help you become the best version of yourself to then go out into the world and go chasing ICW bookings, or go down south and get to the bigger names, or even further abroad. Like, what would be very rewarding to me now is to see someone that I had a hand in helping along their journey, whether it's as a beginner teaching them how to do forward rolls, or try to give them some finer details that everyone in the company that I've been working for the last 8 years, I know what they're looking for, I know what they want, and I know how to guide people towards that. Which, when you think back to when I started, there just wasn't a thing. There wasn't anyone with a hand reached out trying to help you up. Like, as I said earlier, Drew was the first person to ever get signed from our lot and from Scotland in total. But At least now, you know, if you're that kid sitting in front of the television watching pro wrestling, you can then get to the WWE with like a kind of step-by-step guide. And there's guys like myself, Mark Coffey, Joe Coffey, Kenny Williams, like obviously Alba Fire and Piper Niven and Noam Dar are all still here, but you've got Isla Dawn too, who have all came through this system, and Nikki Storm's absolutely killing it too. Like, you know that the first Borat movie,
Yeah.
and it was like Borat's cultural learnings of America for make better, glorious country of Kazakhstan. That's exactly what I've been doing. This is a recon mission. I've been over here trying to get as much information as I can, learn from as many people as I can, to then pass it on to the next guy and to the Martin McAllisters who are trying to get where I've been and beyond. Which, and if I think I've still got a good bit of wrestling performing in the ring. I think I've still got a good few years in me doing that. I feel great. But ultimately, I can't do this forever. And it is very rewarding to be able to help the next generation and push them on for greater things.
Of course, mate, absolutely. And, you know, as I said, Wolfgang, this is the 200th episode of this show, and I've interviewed many people across the UK and abroad. And I want to let you know something. A lot of people I interviewed down south want to go to Girders. They hear about Girders and they hear that the environment in there is rewarding. I even interviewed a wrestler named Sebastian Mercer, and he says that he wants to go to Girders and he wants to face you. You're a dream match for him. When you know you've left that impact across the talent in the UK, is that quite amazing to know?
Yeah, as like I've seen online, people want to come to book to Girders, and I always just think it's, well, of course, like we're professional wrestlers, we want to wrestle everywhere, and ultimately we want to make money. So Girders is a good place and it's a good platform for that. But you're right, we do have a good reputation. It's ran well. We're doing everything we can to be leaders in Scottish pro wrestling or British pro wrestling. We want to set an example of how it can be done, how it should be done, and hold ourselves, certainly Girders members and the people performing on our shows. But we want to influence the rest to be doing this the right way and lead by example kind of thing. So it is flattering that people want to come work us, especially anyone that I've had any influence on professionally to the point where they want to step in the ring for me. Like that's always, you always want to be the guy that people want to get in the ring with. You never want to be that guy that goes and they see their name on the card against, let's say they don't want to get in with Wolfgang. If they see it, and if they see Wolfgang on the card against them, you want that to be, oh, good, and not, oh, fuck. Like, you know what I mean? There's some people that you get put in the ring with, you know, to phrase a friend of mine, Joe Coffey, after competing with someone that was a bit of a struggle, he said it was like swimming upstream with a piano tied to your neck. I don't want to be that piano. I'd much rather be swimming alongside you. So it's always flattering, and it's exactly the kind of wrestler I want to be, where you're the wrestler and you're the guy that people want to get in the ring with because they know they're going to have fun, the crowd are going to have fun, and they're going to come away from that safe. Like I might look like I'm absolutely mauling my opponents, and I am trying my best sometimes, but I'll do it safely, and you won't have to go get your teeth pulled back into place, or like you won't be off for 6 months because you've injured your leg and you can't compete and you can't make money. So yeah, if the lasting legacy that I can leave behind is for everyone to be safe and look after each other, I'll be happy with that.
Good legacy to have, my friend, and it will make a great autobiography when you do write a book eventually or something. I would give that a good read, maybe even a a recommendation by WH Smith or something like that still around. I don't know. Times are moving too quick.
Is John Menzies been away for a while? Is John Menzies still a thing?
I don't get out too much of Edinburgh, so I don't really know anything besides that. I know where the pub is. I know where the shops are.
John Menzies will be before your time, I think.
Yeah, sadly, I was still a twinkle in my dad's eye probably at that point. But I want to talk about, obviously, you mentioned ICW. You know, I got into wrestling in 2019, and I've always been fascinated about going back and watching the 2 Fight Club documentaries done by the BBC, where they cover the events of ICW in that early 2010 period. For yourself, Wolfgang, who experienced that time period, what was it really like to live it?
So it's good to look back on. It's probably some of the fondest memories that I've had, not just in wrestling, but in my life. Like everything you've seen on camera, all the backstage stuff, like that was all authentic and real, and it was guys and lassies that had been training together and competing together around Scotland for years and had a genuine bond together. And I guess that was the attraction from the BBC. Like, as soon as I met Grado, he was always made for television. You just knew he's going to be where he is now. He's on the radio, he's on the wireless, he's never at the telly. Anytime somebody phones in sick, who do they call? Grado. And you had characters like Jack Jester, like Joe Coffey and Mark Coffey were coming through with Jackie Polo Promotions. Like you had the Bucky Boys and all the kind of like top tier talent fit all around Scotland coming together. And that both those documentaries were just like a fly in the wall of us experiencing everything in real time. As far as like when ICW started, it was 30 people in Maryhill Hall, and a good portion of that was my friends and family that I'd invited along. Fast forward maybe 5-6 years, we'd made it into nightclubs, and it became this almost like a kind of like it was an alternative night out. It wasn't just pro wrestling fans going to watch this. It was a bunch of nutters in the ring just going wild, and that was encouraged by, I don't want to say they were all drunk, but they were all having a good night out and really letting loose. Like you go out on a Sunday night and you get to scream as loud as you want at the goodies or the baddies. And to be honest, this is an over 18 show, so nobody's really playing goodie or baddie. It's just who you like and who you don't like. It was rough. It was grungy. It was. I went to this bar when I was young. I used to go with all my mates, and it was like a low ceiling. And on a really good night, there would be sweat and condensation dripping for the ceiling. That was the same kind of feeling as what early ICW was, just this grungy, like underground nightclub kind of feel. And no wonder the BBC kind of took notice that it was the camaraderie between all of us and just the like balls to the wall craziness that ICW was. They somehow managed to capture that, and I think it comes across on screen. Like, and it's wild that those 2 documentaries are going to be there forever for us to watch back, because another 10-15 years, that's stuff we're going to love being able to watch back. Those of us that have got kids, and by that time probably grandkids, like it felt as though the BBC are here. This must be something cool. Like all these shows that we're doing, everyone's going crazy for them. We're creating a buzz. So yeah, it felt special at the time, but even when those documentaries were coming out, we didn't really know where this is going to go. Like fast forward a couple of years to selling out all these massive nightclubs like the ABC, God bless it, big disco ball, and the Barrowlands, that's still our favourite venue. Like the amount of people that have played there, but those at some point became normal shows in the build up to running the SEC or the SECC, now the SEC, Scottish Exhibition and Conference Centre, became the Scottish Event Campus. So for everyone listening, you can't say SECC anymore. It's the SEC. They've dropped the C. But yeah, running there for like 4,000 people, and then the following year running the Hydro in front of 6,500, and obviously I had one of the best entrances I've ever seen. Like, got to come down on a motorbike, got to ride out. My mum was in the crowd, my dad was on the bike on the stage by my side. Like, personally, it was one of the highlights of my career. I was a world champ going into a steel cage match against Trent Seven, who's one of my favourite opponents to ever lock up with. So there's no way that during the film of those BBC documentaries that we had any idea that any of this was going to come. But we knew something special was happening. It was just cool to be part of it and ride it out, because it seemed to just get better and better, and we felt like rock stars. We got to the point where we were touring the UK in a tour bus that had like a wee room down the back for setting up the PlayStation. Noam Dar was on FIFA the entire time, or everyone upstairs cracking a beer while we drive to Newcastle or Liverpool or any of these amazing cities and like great wrestling towns. Like during the filming, you don't think it's going to be that special because you don't think what you're doing is going to mean anything to anyone. But looking back, if it wasn't for them, who knows what would have came? We might never have got anywhere. World of Sport might have never decided to come back. If we didn't do the Hydro, WWE would never have taken notice and decided to create their own UK brand. All that came off the back of one, ICW. But if it wasn't for ICW, you wouldn't have got the interest of the Vice documentary. That's what kicked it all off. And off the back of the Vice documentary, we got the Insane Fight Club 1 and 2. So it's just been you can track that trajectory from ICW starting in 2006 to the Vice documentary, BBC documentaries, getting to the Hydro, World of Sport coming in, WWE UK coming in and doing that full tournament and everything. That all started with what Mark Gallus did in Maryhill in 2006. You can quote me on that.
Hey, I'll quote it, hashtag it, make sure it's in writing. I'll make sure it's in scripture as well. I'll make sure it's written on the cave walls of Arthur Seat itself. I'll make sure it's there for the test of time. ICW is really a special company because a lot of people, when they think Scotland and wrestling, it is that company. It's what it's obviously you guys have built and left with the legacy. And obviously you would become the ICW World Heavyweight Champion, pinning Joe Coffey. And I think Cage Match has it as 3 seconds. I don't know why it has it 3 seconds. I think it was a bit longer than that. But just your time.
It was under a minute.
Yeah, I don't know. Someone's playing around with them results there. I'm going to launch a very strongly worded email about that. But your time as ICW World Heavyweight Champion, to be the face of the company that so many people in Scotland look up to for wrestling during that time period, was that quite a very accomplishing moment for you?
Absolutely. Like, anytime any company wants to put their championship on you is a massive honour, but I'd been with ICW since the very first show. I was there when the first champion was crowned, and I'd always, I guess, hoped that one day I would get the championship and get the nod from Mark Dallas, but it wasn't something that I was ever, I want to be the champion, I have to be the champion. I was getting to compete and perform with some of my best friends. Like, I was just enjoying what we were doing. I was happy to be part of the band. I was happy to be part of the team that was building all of this, I didn't necessarily think I have to be the top guy. Like, I know that there's better choices professionally. Like, obviously, you want to go with guys like Grado, the guys that's getting the most interaction. Like, he's the face of the company. Why wouldn't it be him? So to be given that honour of being crowned ICW World Champion, because by this point, Drew Galloway McIntyre had already beaten Jack Jester for it and then took it a tour of the world. And my wife's quite a stickler for this. If you've got a wrestling company and you've got a championship and you're calling it a world championship, then your champion or that belt should have been defended in at least 3 different continents and like 4, 5, or 6 different countries to legitimize it as a world title, whether it's tag team, heavyweight, women's, whatever you like. The women's title, just since we're talking about it, is also a world title in ICW because of Kaylee Ray, Alba Fire, and Piper Niven. And I want to forgive me if there's anyone else that contributed to making that a world title, but yeah, on the build up to the first Hydro, I think I'd won the square go in the Barrowlands, and the last person I threw out was Joe Coffey, and then carried the briefcase for a while. Joe Coffey was going into the ABC to face Demo, who was the current champion, and as soon as Joe beat Demo, I came down with 2 sets of brass knucks. 1 to get the job done, 2 just in case anything happened. And sure enough, wallop, down goes my Gallus brother, Joe Coffey, and I won the World Heavyweight Championship in the ABC. It's a massive honour, and one of my favourite photos throughout my career is standing on stage at the ABC, holding the title above my head, and beside me you've got like Bram, Rudo, Drew, Kaylee, Stevie. It was obviously all the villains, but it was all genuine friends that I'd started. Rudo was there and Drew was there my first day of training when I was like 15 years old, 14, 15 years old. So, and I've known them all through my career and we've been very close friends. So to be given a moment like that from Mark Dallas and to get to share it with my brothers and sisters was a highlight in my career. But then knowing I was the guy that was going to be the champion going into the first Hydro show and the biggest audience that ICW or any independent promotion has ever drawn in professional wrestling in Britain. We like to put it over as since the days of Big Daddy. Like it's been 30 years, no one's touched that except for ICW, which is a massive badge of honour that we all kind of carry with us. So it was a huge responsibility. I'm confident in my own talent and my own ability in the ring as a performer. I will say that I'm lucky that I was in with a fantastic opponent at the Hydro and Trent Seven. He is an absolute silver-tongued devil on the mic. On my side, I had Rudo over my shoulder. Then he was the mouthpiece for building into the Hydro. So yeah, it was a great honour. And I will point out that I think I was the first guy to ever successfully defend the title on a Fear and Loathing, going into the show as champion and leaving the show as champion. So it's another badge of honour that I carry with me, and the fact that I got the opportunity to finally be world champion in the biggest stage that ICW ever had because I'm not sure if we drew the same amount last year, the year after. So it was like the most eyes on the product at the one time, and I was a champion, and that's nice, isn't it? That's I can cap that. I can tick that off the box. Like, it's hard to enjoy these things while it's happening, but looking back, that's a nice little claim to fame. The fact that Mark Gallus trusted me and was happy for me to be the guy to kind of lead the charge going into the Hydro, the first one. It was a huge honour.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You've left that legacy behind, and you've left a great mark. Obviously, I know you mentioned your missus there, Molly Spartan, who I've had on this show before, and I remember her saying about the world title thing, and I've always thought of that at the back of my mind. Like, I'll always remember Molly said that. But I want to know, though, would you ever love to have a match against Molly?
To be honest, if we're going to be in a match with my wife, Molly Spartan, I would much rather team with her, which I have done in the past. It was like a kind of double date best friends wrestling match where me and my wife faced the best man at my wedding and the maid of honour at our wedding. Not the show wasn't at the wedding. It was, we get married during lockdown. We wouldn't be allowed to do that. But it was myself and Molly Spartan versus BT Gunn and Casey. And I think it's the only time we've ever really been able to perform together and interact. If we had a match against each other. So I had a big hand in coaching Molly Spartan. She was the first person to sign up, and she was the first person to hear about there ever going to be a pro wrestling school attached to ICW. So I know how good she is because I've held her to a high standard, and we train together quite regularly. We'll get in the ring and we'll kind of roll around, and she'll beat me up, and I'll try and fight back until she gets too angry and overpowers me. But to be honest, if anything goes wrong in the house, we'll sometimes just start forearming each other, and if I see her laying on the ground with the dog, I'll try and put her in a Boston Crab. So it doesn't have to be on a show. There is an ongoing battle between husband and wife. If we were able to do that on a show, yeah, I think that would be a great moment for us. I think we could tell a good story too. Everyone loves an intergender match, so especially if it's man and wife. Maybe some promoter will want to book that, or if not, then we've got Iron Girders, so we can put on any match we want. If things get too heated and we have to settle something, then yeah, why not? We'll throw it in the ring. We'll settle this. She hits hard though. I will say that she hits very hard.
I've seen her chuck Rio off a balcony, and yeah, that's like where I'm like, I'm gonna back away and hide. Like, good luck to you, sir, if you have to face her in the ring one day. Of white balconies, very good word that there. I mean, also I know Molly performs in Mythos Ragnarok. Would you ever be? I think you'd be a good Odin. You should be Odin.
Really?
Yeah, come
I
on.
would love an opportunity for something like that. Yeah, definitely. Any sort of crossover stuff where I've been a professional wrestler or I've been involved in professional wrestling for 22, 23 years. So if those skills that I've developed are transferable into any sort of other roles, then I'm all for it. And I've seen the Mythos Ragnarok show in its infancy, and I've obviously been very close to watching it develop as my wife goes over to, like, she was away in Vienna for 40 days there, performing like every day, sometimes twice a day. But she absolutely loved it, and it's been an amazing learning experience. And the way she was putting it over, yeah, I would love to be involved in something like that. And I don't know what character I would best fit. But I think I fit the aesthetic anyway of like a Ragnarok, a Ragnarokian.
I think that would do very well, mate. I think that would do very well. Of course, man, absolutely. And now let's get obviously into WWE, because obviously there was the United Kingdom tournament, and I had Mark Andrews on, who participated in that first inaugural tournament, and obviously you have as well. I love to know the hype and build up to that tournament and what was like from a wrestler's point of view, knowing that there was this tournament to crown a UK champion for the WWE?
Finding out about the first UK tournament was probably the most exciting thing that's happened in my professional career. Certainly up until that point, there's been a lot of cool highlights that have come after that and off the back of that. But in 2016, at this point, I was about to become ICW World Champion. Kind of setting the stage for you. Like, world of sport was just starting to kind of kick off, and that was starting to become a thing. And then that was the catalyst for WWE to then go, well, if they're doing it, there's certainly a market for it. After all the buzz that they'd had from ICW in Scotland, so the start of my WWE career really goes back to the ICW tour in Manchester, and I was on against Noam Dar, and I had won the square go, so I had the briefcase and I had the #1 contendership, and it's the same as the WWE's Money in the Bank. You can cash it in at any point, any time. So there was a buzz going about the locker room that William Regal was maybe going to be coming to the show. He'd been over in the UK doing a bit of research, doing a bit of scouting, and word got around the locker room that he was maybe going to be coming to Manchester tonight to watch ICW. And sure enough, he showed up, and this was the first time that I'd ever met him. Lovely guy, much taller than you think. He was very good at playing small and being small as a character when it had to, but when he's in normal life, his back's up straight, his chin up. He's a very, very tall human being. My match with Noam Dar, I was very confident in my ability and his ability. We'd competed against each other and performed together a few times. I'd known him since the very start of his career too, and we'd trained for years previous. And knowing that William Regal is going to be in the audience watching, and me specifically, I had the briefcase, so that shows them that I'm the guy they're considering making the top guy. So right away, I felt as though there's this kind of pressure to deliver, and putting the match together with Noam. He'd already worked with the WWE. I think he would maybe already done the Cruiserweight Classic, and Noam was familiar with Regal and the WWE. And Noam says to me while we were putting the match together, all Regal wants to see is if you look like you can fight, or if you look like you can beat someone up. Because ultimately that's what a professional wrestler is. Like, I want to be that professional wrestler that if you walk into a bar, you don't want to interact with them just in case it kicks off. Like, I'd rather put that fear into someone immediately rather than actually have to deal with any sort of confrontation. But the presentation just had to be that I can beat someone up. And at the time, I looked aggressive. I was working with the likes of Bram and Drew McIntyre and Jack Jester, and I was an affiliate of the Black Label. So we were the heels. So I was a heel. I was an out-and-out heel. And when Noam says all he wants to see is if you can beat me up, Noam did a huge favour for me that night. And I'm a bigger guy than him. He's shorter in stature, but he's super athletic. He's very aggressive with his martial arts, especially his strikes. But I could easily overpower him in a pro wrestling sense and beat him up to show off, basically, for William Regal. and Noam really helped me out that night by selling well for me and essentially trying to help me get a job and getting for the WWE, at least for them to take notice, for Regal to take notice. It was an audition tape. I never done a WWE tryout. I had never had any sort of connection with them or interaction with them before that night in Manchester, and it was by William Regal being there on a kind of scouting mission. After the match, I came backstage, and after the show, Regal came backstage. I walked into one of the rooms where he was, and he was sitting speaking to some of our students and some of the kind of newer guys coming through. So I didn't interrupt. I didn't want to take them away from that. I let them continue to kind of pick his ear, and I didn't want to interrupt that story. So I just kind of like shook his hand, thanked him for being there, and left it at that. I didn't get another chance to see him. He'd shot a craw and disappeared. And I didn't have his number, didn't have a way of contacting him. It was a few months later. It must have been maybe September, October, November, kind of, because the next thing I got from him was a message or an email asking for my phone number. And this was in the morning. And I'd waited all day. I'd obviously sent my number to him immediately. I'd waited all day for it, and I thought, right, mate, he's not going to call me now. I can relax. Like, this is 9, 10 o'clock at night. Maybe he'll call me tomorrow or through the week or whatever. And then I settled in for the night. I ran myself a nice wee bath. I put a couple of bath bombs and bath salts in there. It was very relaxing. And just as I got in the tub and settled, the phone rang, and it was William Regal. And I had to jump out, get dressed, and it wasn't a video call, thankfully, but I wanted to be at least with a robe on me when I was sitting talking to him. So that phone call was him telling me there's an offer on the table for you. WWE are going to be hosting a tournament in Blackpool, and they're going to crown the first United Kingdom champion. And I jumped at it. Like, of course, I was going to say yeah. It turned out that I was the only person from Scotland that was chosen to be part of this tournament. There was a lot of English guys in it, a couple of Welsh, a couple of Irish, but I was the only guy in Scotland, which was a massive honour and a huge weight on your shoulders, because it could have been anyone. It could have been so many great performers that were chosen there, and I was given the chance to represent us. Scotland was absolutely full of talent. World of Sport was kicking off, and that had the Mark Coffeys, Joe Coffeys on it, and beyond that, there was just so many ICW. Every match on the card, that everyone earned their spot and deserved to be there. So when I get chose as the only guy to represent Scotland in this WWE UK Championship Tournament, massive weight on my shoulders, but it was a responsibility I was ready to kind of take on. So getting to represent Scotland in the WWE United Kingdom Championship Tournament was a massive honour. Like, I've always been very proud of everyone in Scottish professional wrestling, especially, like, there's no bones about it. If it wasn't for us and the people coming to support us, there wouldn't have been a WWE UK tournament. There wouldn't have been enough excitement and buzz for the WWE, the biggest wrestling promotion in the world, to take notice of that and decide, let's invest in that. Let's kind of get a foothold over there and put on probably one of the best tournaments that the WWE's ever put on, or tournaments in general. It doesn't have to be like a 2-day thing. Like, obviously I'm biased because I was part of it, but there's people that talk to me about that tournament all the time and how special it was, and it really felt like the wrestlers were being rewarded, but it also felt that night in Blackpool that the fans were being rewarded and being acknowledged and being given their platform to really show the world how good British wrestling was at this point, because the card was absolutely stacked with like the best performers from around the UK there. And my path to that tournament, I guess, my wife, it was around about my birthday, my wife and I, she'd booked a holiday for us, and it was like a week in January. We just so happened to book it at the same time that the tournament was going to be on. And I says to Regal, "Do you need me there for both days? Because I'm on holiday and it would mean I'd have to come back early." And he says to me, "Well, you're either there or you're not." I went, "Well, okay, I'll be there both days, don't worry." Which is it's a stupid question to ask. I should have just been like, "Right, I'll be there," assuming that I'd want to be part of both days. But I had my wife and my holiday book, so I wasn't for cutting that short for anyone other than the WWE. So I told this story recently, but I was never supposed to go any further than one match. I was never supposed to make it to the semi-finals. They had their 4 core WWE UK performers that they were going to go with, and it was Trent Seven, Tyler Bate, Pete Dunne, who was all popping off at the time with Progress, and that was British Strong Style. And then Mark Andrews, who is just coming off the back of a TNA run. He was signed to TNA just as we were about to kick things off here, so he'd already made a massive name for himself, and that was the core 4 that the powers that be at the WWE had decided, we'll do the tournament, that's your 4 semi-finalists, and then we'll build off of that. So on the Saturday, I had my first round match against Tyson T-Bone, and I think quite a lot of Scottish fans had made the trip to Blackpool in the Palace Theatre. I think it was the Palace Theatre. Anyway, they'd made the trip down to Blackpool. Sorry, what was that? The Winter Gardens. That was it, in Blackpool. I think it was the Winter Garden, the Palace Theatre and the Winter Gardens. Maybe. So yeah, like a lot of wrestling fans who'd known me from ICW had made their way down for the tournament, and I think it was a bit of a bonus that I was involved, because any pro wrestling fan worth their salt would have made the effort to try and get to this show if it was a possibility for them. It was, as I said earlier, a huge celebration of British wrestling, and it was great for everyone there that was involved to have this platform to finally show off like the best kept secret in pro wrestling, which was indie pro wrestling in Britain at the time. So my match against Tyson T-Bone in the first round on the Saturday, I think no one was expecting me to do as well as I did, whether it be with the crowd reaction. Me winning that match meant I was going on to face Trent Seven in the quarter final. So I had an interview post match as I'm walking backstage, and knew that I was going in to face Trent Seven. And I said something along like the lines of, Trent Seven knows fine well how it feels to be in the ring with a big bad Wolf. And I ended it, we'll be having a party when Wolfie wins, because everyone had been singing this at shows I'd been going to, and I thought that's a nice wee hook that we can try and get. I get backstage. Everyone else had their qualifying matches. The match was set for me versus Trent Seven, which was a rematch from the Hydro and the steel cage for the ICW World Heavyweight title. Now we were taking this to the WWE, the first ever UK tournament quarter final. Then, as I'm leaving the show on the Saturday, A-Train, Prince Albert, Matt Bloom, he says to me, "Get some rest. You're going to need it." And that was all he said. He speaks in riddles, this man. And he says to me, that's all he says. So I go home and I'm questioning it all night and speaking to Molly, my wife. What could he mean? And at this point, I'm scheduled for one match versus Trent Seven on the Sunday, and that's it. And that's the end of what they wanted me for. To the point where Trent Seven had filmed an interview as if it was after the match with me. So in TV land, we're interviewing Trent Seven. He's just beat Wolfgang, and now he's going to face his tag team partner of Mustache Mountain, Tyler Bate, and that was going to be the semi-final. Filmed that interview. Overnight, the decision was made to scrap that. Wolfgang is going to beat Trent Seven in the quarterfinal, and in the semi-final, instead of Trent, it's actually going to be Tyler Bate versus Wolfgang. And the final four will be those two, Mark Andrews and Pete Dunne. Now, ultimately, Tyler beat me, goes on to the final. Pete beats Mark Andrews, and the final is the first time that we see on WWE Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne, which absolutely lit the wrestling world on fire, especially when they done the rematch in Chicago and Pete won the title. But on this night, the tournament was won by like 19-year-old Tyler Bate, and I think he became the youngest champion in WWE history. So making it to the semi-final was a surprise to me and everyone else involved. But to get beat with a guy that won it, then I can still hold my head up. Like, I get beat by the champion, and he was the best that weekend. Now, another thing that can verify what I'm saying here is they had already put into production a Mattel toy for Tyler Bate, where it was a Tyler Bate figure and the United Kingdom Championship. And on the back, it had a graphic of the tournament from that weekend, and it had everyone's name all the way down: Tyson T-Bone, Wolfgang, and then Wolfgang, Trent Seven. And in the semi-finals, it said Tyler Bate, Trent Seven. This is weeks or months after the tournament is taking place. So at some point, that graphic was made, the card was booked, and Trent Seven was supposed to beat Wolfgang. But if you know your history, Wolfgang made it to the semi-finals, shattered everyone's expectations, and the four that were originally planned on building this entire UK brand off of became five. And all that means is I became the driver for the rest of them, because everywhere we went, Orlando, Texas, LA, I was the guy driving. Trent was sitting next to me and the boys were in the back. And it was some of the best times that we ever had. Like, to go from no experience of working with the WWE to being flown over to Royal Rumble in 2017, yeah. And it was just, yeah, it was everything I'd ever wanted. It felt amazing. It felt like I'd finally become a real professional wrestler thing, like recognised by the WWE and getting that stamp of approval. Getting to travel all around America with the British Strong Style Boys and Mark Andrews was some of the favourite times that I've had in professional wrestling, and I look back on it fondly. And the UK tournament itself is something that I think will always be a highlight of my career. I hope it's not the highlight. I hope I do better things than that. Like, I've won NXT UK tag gold, I've won NXT gold, and I think combined, myself and Mark Coffey as part of Gallus are like the third top team in the WWE as far as holding tag team gold for a length of time goes, which is crazy. Like, when you consider all the tag teams in the history of the WWE, Dudley Boys, Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian, the Bushwhackers, Gallus are above all of that as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, the tournament itself was a massive thing for me and everyone involved, and everyone that would become involved as the tournament became WWE UK, and ultimately it became NXT UK when we had our own brand and we brought in more wrestlers: Kenny Williams, Isla Dawn, Alba Fire, Piper Niven. These people all get their start. Joe and Mark Coffey all get their start in NXT UK, and it's been amazing to see everyone grow off the back of that. The opportunities afforded to us off the back of that tournament are monumental. Like, building the WWE Performance Centre, us getting to train every week with the likes of Fit Finlay. No, he wasn't there at the time. He was over in the WWE PC. But Johnny Moss, Robbie Brookside, Dave Taylor, Johnny Saint, all these guys are just such a wealth of knowledge of professional wrestling and a way of conducting themselves in the ring and out that it was, yeah, I can't express just how valuable it has been as far as like me progressing and developing as a professional wrestler. Yeah, like, I can't believe it was 8 years ago when we done that first tournament, January 2017. But and it's crazy to think of all the things that have happened between then and now. Yeah, it was. I was very lucky to be part of all of that.
Hey, absolutely. It's a monumental tournament. I love going back and watching it. Obviously, it's not on Netflix or YouTube. I do say the high seas for that. We'll go to Pirate Land, but it's an amazing tournament to watch back. Now, obviously, Wolfgang, you've done some stuff in NXT UK and NXT, but I think we'll save that for another time because we'll go into high depth in that. And I know you're a very busy man. We've got to let the Wolf go and do his thing. So we'll wrap up here, my friend, with obviously talking about, the future. Obviously, you and Coffey as Gallus were on the team and got released, but I've seen you guys really hitting the road running, building up your graphics, new photos, starting Cameo, and I believe you also got some figures coming out as well, which is just showing how you guys are really hitting that ground running. I had Dijak on, and I remember when he spoke about his release of how he was really grateful to see people inboxing him about promotions and stuff like that. So I want to know for yourself, how does it feel to hit the ground running, doing all these things for your future?
It's a bit intimidating to begin with, like, without going into it too much. Like, we're kind of trying to figure everything out as we go. We're foreigners living in another country, and the working visa that we had was attached to the job. So at the moment, we're scrambling, trying to make sure that we can get our own visas and we can continue to work here. Ultimately, we might end up back in the UK, and we moved over here and with the intention of staying here for a while. So as much as everything you kind of see on screen and up front, there's so much going on in the background to try and make sure that we can set ourselves up for post WWE life, which happens to everybody. We thought this day would come. We know it comes to everybody. We honestly thought that we were going to have a little bit longer with other opportunities, but at this point, we're we're confident in our own abilities and our own talents that we could step into any other top wrestling promotion in any country and hold our own and offer something different to everything else that's going on. So at the moment, there's a lot of kind of like admin stuff going on just in the background to make sure that all of this can happen. The figures were just announced today. That was really cool. They'll be available. I think they're available to pre-order now. It's just like a kind of 3D render we see just now. By the end of the month, we're hoping to have a coloured version to put out to everyone and really launch it properly. To be created into little wrestling figures, the ultimate goal for a lot of professional wrestlers, I think, is just being like, when we were young, we would buy these, and when we grew up, we'd collect them and put them on our walls. So to finally kind of be immortalized and as a wrestling figure is really cool. The WWE scanned us a few times, but that's always just in case, like if they decide to do something with it. But to actually have these in production being released by APS Toys is very, very cool. We hope to have them. Well, they are available online, but we're also going to get some that we can then take to shows with us and putting on merch desks along with everything else. It's exciting this kind of time because it is a transition to see where we're going to land, what's going to become of us. The plan is to stick together and fly the flag for Gallus, GBOT, everywhere we go. We have been signed to a company back in Scotland, Clan Wrestling, with more details coming out on that soon. But we had a phone call from them recently, which we were happy to answer, and we're excited to be doing some work with them. They recently ran their first show in Braehead Arena, which myself, Mark Coffey and Joe Coffey competed in as part of NXT UK back in like 2018, maybe. And that was a building that I'd watched professional wrestling in for a few years growing up, whether it be WWE or TNA. So I don't want to be giving any spoilers here, but I presume we're going to be going back to Braehead Arena. Date to be announced. But that's exciting for myself, Mark and Joe to be bringing Gallus to an arena show for the first time since 2018. We sat on the sidelines and watched the WWE put shows on in our hometown, and we were starving to be involved. We'd have loved the opportunity to come back and perform in front of all the Scottish pro wrestling fans that had supported us and been part of that build for there to be a WWE UK or NXT UK. So this has given us the chance to go back, a bit of a homecoming, and show them what we've been putting together as part of the WWE for the last 8 years. We've been traveling together, training together regularly, competing on shows around the US, predominantly in Florida. And me, Mark and Joe were just choking to get out there in front of a live audience and show them what Gallus is all about, really. Like, I think it's something that the Scottish audience can connect to a lot better than what the American audience can. They've got a pure understanding of what Gallus is just with that one word. You have to explain it to people that don't understand, and it feels as though we're coming home to like people that speak our language. And yeah, they don't know who the opponents are going to be, but the plan is to set the place on fire, figuratively.
Well, Wolfgang, as we all Scots do say, here we fucking go, because I cannot wait to see Gallus boys back on top. Wolfgang, mate, It's been a pleasure to have you here for this monumental episode of the Soul Sessions. Folks, of course, as I do with every guest, if you love what you've heard from Wolfgang, click his link down below for his Instagram, follow him on there, see what he does up to, get some of those figures, order yourself a cameo. If you ever bring some shirts out, bring them out. I'm a small, so there's always plenty for me at wrestling shows. I always enjoy that fact. But it's great to have you here on this show, my friend. Thank you for coming on. And of course, folks, as I say, as a good Scotsman, finish up your pint. I would neck this, but my stomach's about to explode right now. Put your chair away, and thank you as always for tuning in for another episode of the Soul Sessions.
Now I'm out there human too. Gonna live like animals do. No more laws and no more rules. No more body, no more rules.